Hi, my name is Hazem Gaber, and today we're going to look at DeepSeek, which is this Chinese artificial intelligence bot that everybody's talking about. And it caused $1 trillion in losses on the stock market today. And here's why. It's so if you're familiar with ChatGPT or any of the other artificial intelligence bots, they basically a company would take a whole big pile of data, like every single article on Wikipedia or every single article from the New York Times or whatever, and they would build a model that runs on a data center, and that model would have the ability to learn on its own and generate new responses, and then that results in an application that you can talk to. But when you're actually talking to it, so there's a few different artificial intelligence systems right now, and there's GPQA, there's DeepSeek, and then there's QN, and then there's a Llama 3.1, which is the one that Meta or Facebook created, and then we've got Anthropic, which made a artificial intelligence called Claude, and then of course we've got ChatGPT, which everybody knows this is artificial intelligence. So when you talk to it, you can just say, "Hi, how are you?" And ChatGPT is it knows that I'm doing some projects, so it learned some things, but for some reason it's calling me Corey, but my name is Hazem. So ChatGPT is like you can see it's not like pasting the whole sentence right away. It's doing it word by word. So let me say, what is an electrical panel? So what ChatGPT is doing is it's getting your what you said, and it's weighing the response. So it says, what's the first word that I say, and then the second word, and the third word, and the fourth word. And it's doing that because it's got a massive database of words and connections, like literally a trillion word combinations in a database, and they call those parameters. And every one of those parameters has a certain weight. And so when it's looking at how do I respond to a query, it says, well, what do I do? What's the first word what word scores the best for the next response? And then what word scores the best for the next response, and the next, and the next, and the next. And pretty soon it's built out a full response here. And then when you talk to it and say, hey, this is not what I was looking for, or yes, this is what I was looking for. So if you tell it the response is good, then it goes back to those parameters that it selected, and it gives them more weight, so it knows what it did was correct. But if you tell it this is not the response I'm looking for, it goes back and says those parameters are wrong, and it gives them a little bit less weight, and then they come back as they get used less. And that's how the model learns. Now the DeepSeek is completely different, and it just came out. Now, if you look at it, there's a whole bunch of benchmarks. So different professors and universities and companies have created tests to tell us whether the DeepSeek or any other AI is worthy. And it does that by running that AI program through a test and then giving us a score. So the latest version of DeepSeek, version 3, you can see it's scoring much higher than Llama, GPT, Claude, in many categories, and I'm not going to look at all of them, but basically here's an example of a test. So what they actually did is some PhD students from New York University created 448 multiple choice questions they got people who have PhDs in really narrow subjects. Well, most PhDs are narrow, but like organic chemistry or biology or physiology or whatever. And each one created a really difficult multiple choice question, something that's so hard you couldn't get the answer just by going on the internet and reading. So It's something that requires you to apply logic, which is not what the large language model does. The large language model just says what's the next word and what's the next word and what's the next word. But how do you train that model so well that it can come up with an answer to a question? You can read this question. A methyl cyclopentadiene was allowed to react with methyl isoamyl ketone in a catalytic amount, blah blah blah. So unless you're an expert in like advanced chemistry, you're not going to know the answer to this question. And then they took all these questions and they gave them to other people with PhDs, but PhDs in different subjects. So they took a chemistry question and gave it to a guy who studied biology, and then they tried to see if he could get the answer. And if he couldn't get the answer, then they knew the question was really hard. And then they took all these questions, and see, some of them contained quantum mechanics. So they took all these questions and they feed them into the AI bots, and they see how many questions the bot can answer. And right now, the DeepMind, or the not DeepMind, the DeepSeek is the top in a lot of these different tests. And what's really crazy is that DeepSeek doesn't just reply. DeepSeek shows us the logic. So here's the model. When you tell it, when you ask DeepSeek a question, it applies reasoning, which is really crazy. It's so DeepSeek. Why is it so good? Because it's flipped the whole model on its head, and instead of applying the large language model, it's taken all these different large language models that are out there and it's refined them into this other product, and it gives you the answer. But it doesn't just give you the answer, it shows you step by step how it got to the answer. So it's thinking not like the language part of your brain that's thinking about what to say next. It's thinking about the reasoning part of your brain that's like taking a problem and breaking it down into pieces. So there's a second layer on top of the first one. So the first layer is the language model. That's what do I say, and it's using that to understand the question, and then it's taking what it's learned from the question, and then looking back in its brain sort of to figure out now how do I get to the answer. And multiple choice questions are interesting because of the nature of the AI model. The AI never says I don't know. It always has an answer, because there's no right or wrong answer with AI. There's only best answers. So this answer scores 80%, and this one scores 75%, and this one scores 60%. So I'm going to give you the 80% answer, even though the 80% answer might be completely wrong. Now, the other thing is that because of that, you can run DeepSeek right in the web browser, but you also got, and right now there's a DDoS attack, so it might not run, but we're going to try to run it later. But there's also an API, and the other thing is it's fully open source. So ChatGPT, you have no idea how it's working, and you have no idea what part of your data it's stealing, because when you put data into ChatGPT or any other AI app, it doesn't save the data, but it actually does take the data and use it to learn. So people who have used ChatGPT to help them with their source code, like if they're creating an app or a computer program, they paste their code into ChatGPT and they say, hey, help me out here. Tell me how, if my code is good, or if you can give me some suggestions. And then ChatGPT does, but it incorporates some of that code back into the model. So somebody else somewhere else ends up getting snippets of their code without realizing it. So now the thing is that the DeepSeek is Chinese, so it's censored. So if we ask it something like, tell me about Square Massacre. See, So this is one of the crazy things. It was going to tell me, and then I'm going to do this later. So if I say, who does Taiwan belong to? So there's a lot of when I asked it about Tiananmen Square, it said sorry. That's it. It started to answer it, and it self-censored itself. So there's something built into it. But the cool thing is, you can download the whole DeepSeek app, and you can run it right on your desktop on a really powerful computer. So what's really interesting here is the other thing is there's massive data centers that run all of the GPT stuff, all of the existing AI models. They need a ton of databases, which are very compute intensive, and that means they need basically hundreds of thousands of square feet of really dense server space and tons of power. So right now, yes, a query for an artificial intelligence is 10 times the compute power of a Google search, and all of that is powered by chips, like graphics processing chips. And so investors piled a ton of money into Nvidia because they said the AI is going to boom, and Nvidia is the ones that's selling all of these graphics chips, and everybody's going to need the Nvidia chips, and Nvidia is so far advanced, and so their stock shot up, but they had a record loss, the largest market capitalization loss in the stock market history today, because now everybody's like, whoa, they don't need Nvidia chips anymore because the Chinese managed to build this whole AI platform for like $5 million, and it runs like you can run on like a $2,000 laptop. Like the laptop I'm working on can run deep. I keep calling it DeepMind, but it's called DeepSeek. So that's pretty insane that you could do that. And so everybody's like, well, if that's true, then we don't need to buy any more Nvidia chips. They're not going to sell as much. And now the commercial part of it was people thought, well, the concept of an AI service was going to be in the cloud. Someone's going to build an app, and someone's going to build a massive data center, and there's going to be a massive amount of compute power. But what's actually going to happen now is these ChatGPT and these really extensive models, they're still going to be there, and there's still going to be data centers, but these big models are like experts, and the experts are going to be used to train like smaller versions of the AI that apply logic on the second layer. So there's the first layer of understanding what to say, and then the second layer is like a more tertiary response, not just so it's actually building on letting the computer understand what's actually being asked, not just what's there, but not just what the words are and what word do I say next, but what do those words actually mean, and start to create instead of just word connections, like rule connections between the different systems. And because of that, everybody's going to be able to run this on a standard server, and they won't need as many Nvidia chips, and so demand's going to plummet. Now, having said that, the next step, of course, is for you to download DeepSeek and try it out for yourself. And if you have any questions, please post a comment. Thank you.